The fact that Northwest Airlines and its striking pilots are, as far as we know, still negotiating tonight in hopes of quickly ending the walkout that began some 20 hours ago. The talks are top secret, but the word is that if the strike is not solved soon, like tonight, it could be another long one. The airport terminal is not exactly a beehive tonight, in contrast to the confusion that reigned earlier today when nearly all of the Northwest flights just stopped. More on that in a moment, but first the latest on tonight's negotiations from Barry Peterson via live minicam from Northwest headquarters. Barry?
The situation has changed significantly, perhaps, Dave, from our last report on the scene at 6. The pilots' negotiating team, which was meeting at a nearby motel, left the motel and came here to the Northwest headquarters. They met with the Northwest officials for about an hour, face-to-face, presented their proposal, and then let Northwest ponder it. About 4 or 5 minutes ago, the pilots' team emerged from the Northwest building. They said that Northwest is still talking about the proposal. J.J. O'Donnell, who is the president of the Airline Pilots Association out of their national office, told me the major hang-up is pensions. When I asked him if he was optimistic or pessimistic, his only comment was, it's kind of silly to close down an airline over a principle, which would seem to indicate that the issue is not economic. One ominous note, however, we talked to some Northwest employees who say they are already beginning to pack and store away equipment as if it's going to be a long, long strike. And the layoffs of other employees caused by the pilot strike could begin tonight. Northwest normally has about 68 flights leaving the Twin Cities daily. Today, only 3 took off, bound for Chicago, flown by supervisory personnel. For anyone trying to get anywhere else on Northwest, the only thing you can do is wait. This is Barry Peterson reporting live via WCCO television minicam outside the Northwest Orient headquarters at the Twin Cities International Airport.
From WCCO Television News, the Northwest Communication Center, this is The Scene Tonight with Dave Moore reporting.
Northwest says the first day of the pilot strike will cost it $2.5 million, a loss that will be sharply reduced when the company's mutual aid pact with other airlines takes effect tomorrow. The 1,500 pilots, of course, are losing lots of money, and as Sam Ford reports now, the passengers weren't without some pain themselves.
The day began with several Northwest pilots picketing at various locations around the airport. As the pickets paced, the passengers waited at Northwest ticket counters. Some of the passengers were lucky, getting to leave on one of the 3 flights out. All to Chicago, all flown by supervisory personnel. Others weren't so lucky. They stood in lines, wondering whether Northwest would allow them to use another carrier or leave them stuck in the Twin Cities.
Well, I was supposed to leave today for Montreal, and I didn't know which flight was on, so I had to go all over town and find out if the flight was on, and then I didn't have enough time to get my baggage here, and it's leaving 15 minutes. I don't even know if I can get on it. And they're understocked, so people here are really having a hard time going through.
The traffic loads at other airlines increased dramatically since Northwest is the major carrier in this market. Long lines often formed at competitors' ticket counters, and apparently North Central reservations people were swamped. This strike comes after Northwest and representatives of the 1,500 pilots worked out a tentative agreement July 19th. The pilots contend that the airline has gone back on conditions it accepted in July. At an afternoon news conference, Northwest spokesman Roy Erickson denied that his company has chronic labor problems, saying such talk is one of the classic myths people have been fed. Erickson said the major problem is the pilots. Pilot spokesman John Newman said Northwest employees have never been industry leaders in pay and working conditions, and that they would just like to be in the middle, but Northwest refuses to accept that. Sam Ford, WCCO Television News, reporting.
A local charter and commuter company, Crystal Shamrock, says it will offer daily flights between the Twin Cities and Fargo-Bismarck for the duration of the strike. The new service begins tomorrow. With comment on the Northwest strike, Al Austin now.
Seems like old times, doesn't it? A strike against Northwest Airlines. Maybe we shouldn't criticize success. Northwest is one of the most prosperous airlines in the country, and that may be due in part to the company's hard-nosed tactics in negotiating contracts, the very tactics which seem to make it so strike-prone. The clerks in 1970 and 71, the pilots in 72, now the pilots again. And we can't very well judge who's right or wrong in the different points of dispute between Northwest and the pilots. That's their affair. But the public does have a stake in these strikes. Not only do they inconvenience travelers and cause economic hardships for cities which depend on Northwest as their only airline, but taxpayers foot part of the bill for a strike through unemployment compensation paid non-striking workers laid off during a shutdown, and through federal subsidies to other airlines which will make payments to Northwest during a strike. So we have a right to insist that Northwest and ALPA come to terms through some other means than trying to wait each other out through a prolonged strike. That both sides look hard for points of compromise, and that before they reach another stalemate like those in the previous two strikes, they agree to binding arbitration. Both sides claim to have the public in mind. They can prove it by settling the strike fast.
Dave? Side effects of another ongoing story. The Hennepin County grand jury investigating the River Villa nursing home scandal dropped the other shoe today, criticizing but not indicting some public officials, the legislature, and the welfare department in the affair. Bill Stewart was there today when it unfolded. Bill?
Dave, the grand jury report singled out 3 present and former legislators in particular, accusing them of violating the public trust in return for private profit. It said former State Representative Gary Flackney, now the Hennepin County attorney, compromised his position by taking thousands of dollars from River Villa owners Headland and Strimling while pushing legislation which would further enrich River Villa. It said former legislator Dr. John Salchert accepted $2,500 from River Villa after favorable legislation was passed in 1971. Salchert, the report says, while a legislator, also worked for River Villa as its medical director. And it said state legislator Jim Rice accepted $20,000 from the nursing home in the form of consulting fees while lobbying for River Villa and its interests. Channel 4 News showed Flackney a copy of the report shortly after it was issued this afternoon. We asked about 1,500 shares of nursing home stock Flackney owned while helping to write nursing home legislation. Could you not have acted more in the public interest by owning stock in something other than nursing homes which you were directly regulating?
I think that's an individual choice which points up the problem. Maybe so. In the grand jury's opinion, this presented a conflict. Again, I'm sorry it does.
How much money did you accept from Mr. Strimling and Headland in total, loans and payments?
Over how long a period of time?
Totally.
I have not added up the total. I don't know what the grand jury's findings are. Oh, I don't have any idea.
Tens of thousands of dollars?
No, it's not that much. I don't know how much it was.
You had a $3,500 loan which had been co-signed by Mr. Strimling
I
at
did
the
not know it
River
was
Villa
co-signed.
nursing home, and you didn't know it was co-signed?
That's correct. First time I saw the co-signature on it was when I was asked by the grand jury about it.
Well, the grand jury says you abused your power, violated the public trust, and profited privately from your public position.
I have not seen that comment. I'm sorry, I didn't see it. If someone feels that way, you know, I'm sorry, and I guess it's unfortunate they do. But the fact is that is the very nature of the legislature, which is what they're trying to change, and I see that as very salutary.
Dr. John Salchert has not been available for comment. We tried to reach him at his home, but his home said that he was out for the evening and there was no way to reach him. Jim Rice has also not been reachable for comment. We called his house tonight, but nobody answered, Dave.
Jury named Flackney, Salchert, and Rice. 3 people by name. Does it stop there? Are there more?
It doesn't stop here, Dave, because the point the grand jury wanted to make is that the problem is systematic, and at the very least, if we're going to have part-time legislators doing services for people on the outside in addition to being legislators, at the very least, the jury suggested we require these people to disclose who the outside people are who are paying them, so we can at least watch what the legislators do in light of knowing who's paying from the outside.
This would then seem to be a strike for full-time legislators.
Some are using it that way.
Thanks, Bill. On the matter of retrying hockey player Dave Forbes, County Attorney Flackney is postponing that decision. Originally, you'll recall, that decision was to have been announced tomorrow, August 5th. But Flackney now says he's received new information concerning the Forbes case, says he needs more time to make a decision, at least until August 12th. The first Forbes trial, you'll recall, ended with a hung jury. The Boston Bruins player accused of aggravated assault for his hockey stick attack on the former North Star player Henry Boucher during a league contest on January 4th. The continuing investigation of alleged recruiting violations at the University of Minnesota and the search for a new basketball coach at the university are the top sports stories tonight. Hal?
Well, Dave, Minnesota Athletic Director Paul Giel says he'll narrow the list of head basketball candidates down to 5 or 6 and then present that list to the selection committee for a final decision. Giel told Channel 4's Ralph Fritz that regarding the current NCAA investigation, he'll back his people until and if they are found guilty. Ralph asked Giel if he felt he was as close to the recruiting programs as he should be.
I've always just said, look, I've hired you, I have trusted you. If you look me right in the eye and tell me you're clean, as far as the rules and regulations in that Big Ten handbook and the NCAA handbook, I'm not going to sit here and read it to you. I believe in you. If you tell me that nothing is going wrong out there as far as when you're recruiting kids, I believe you. And if you're violating that confidence I have in you, and that the NCAA and the Big Ten has in you as an employee of this school, then we've got some problems. And so, no, I don't go out with people on a recruiting mission, and I don't run over to Williams Arena all the time to see if somebody's working out as a coach supervising them, because I've been pretty busy for the last 4 years, Ralph, trying to keep this program alive, and I don't have that kind of time.
And Dave, the Twins are leading in Kansas City in the 8th inning 4-3, and we'll have that story and the rest of the sports in just a minute.
Yeah, and listen, when you get back, and if we have time, I'm going to tell you about a theory that I have that could bring the Twins the Western Division pennant. It's based on the fact that they have to win something like 43 out of... I'll get my figures straight between now and then. And,
we got a lot of time.
All right. Our next report tonight concerns the latest details in the disappearance of Jimmy Hoffa.
Also on the Monday scene tonight, these special reports. Alaska, the Black Gold Rush. Quint Neufeld's first report on the Alaskan pipeline. Action News. Skip Loescher ends the international search for a Winona man. Shoestring Living. Larry Schmidt finds a low-cost way to vacation in comfort. And People You'll Like. Susan Spencer finds a man whose livelihood is one big pain after another.
It's clearance time. It's almost fall, and we've got Fords from wall to wall.
We're having a wall-to-wall clearance sale. We're gonna get rid of them all. If you've been waiting, now's the time to shop, 'cause the Fords are wall-to-wall.
Great deals on big cars, small cars, trucks, even high-mileage Ford MPGs during the wall-to-wall clearance sale at your Northland Ford dealer, where pride makes the difference. Just take a look at this.
Betty, which cooking spray are you using these days?
A new one. Pam.
Pam isn't new.
No, but you'd almost think it was, the way they've changed the spray.
They made it better?
They sure did. You can hardly see it. And even with my sensitive nose, I can hardly smell it.
If it doesn't work as well as Pam always did.
Watch. Even these gooey melted cheese sandwiches don't stick to the pan.
Stops food from sticking all right. And you can hardly see it or smell it.
They kept everything good about Pam.
And made it better.
What premium is Twin City Federal offering today?
You're holding it in your hand. Hey, that's only part of it. Wouldn't you rather have a 5-band, 2-way portable radio? Or a space capsule radio?
It's sound offer savings premium time at Twin City Federal. Tape players, recorders, radios, stereos, walkie-talkies. You take your choice, free or at low cost with a qualifying deposit. Build your savings. Get a bargain. It's something to sound off about.
For the most important people in your life, you want things right, you want nothing less. For the most important people who sit around your table, for them you want things good, for them you want best. At Super Value we think of you. At Super Value you're always first. For the most important people.
No sign yet of Jimmy Hoffa. In fact, no real clues to go on. The FBI has now officially entered the case. The speculation is that Hoffa's disappearance is tied either to some mysterious mafia connections or to a continuing power struggle within Hoffa's own Teamsters Union. Bill Plant has more from Detroit.
James Hoffa's family still nurtures the hope today that he is being held somewhere alive, but law enforcement officials are increasingly skeptical.
You'd like to think that he were, but as the hours grow on, I think the likelihood is far less.
Federal agents were very much in evidence at the Hoffa residence today. They carried in what appeared to be a radio antenna, and extra telephone lines were installed in the house, apparently to make it a base of operations. Police sources confirmed today that Hoffa's son, James, received a telephone death threat yesterday. So did another unnamed family friend. Serious or not, the threats gave the FBI an opening into the case, and the Bureau is proceeding full tilt.
It's going to be an all-out investigation. We have put considerable manpower on it. Mr. Kelly has assured me from Washington, D.C. that if we don't have sufficient manpower in Detroit to handle the investigation here adequately, that we can call on other divisions for additional manpower and support personnel.
The search still centers in this immediate area, and the family hopes that the FBI, with its extensive resources, will be able to pick up the so far invisible trail. Bill Plant, CBS News, Detroit.
The jury in the trial of former Florida Senator Edward Gurney is hopelessly deadlocked, it says, on some charges, but the judge, citing the length and the expense of the trial, told the jury to keep at it, keep trying. It will begin its 9th day of deliberations tomorrow. Attorney William Kunstler walked into another controversy in Raleigh, North Carolina today when he tried to join Joanne Little's defense team. She's the black woman accused of killing her jailer. When Kunstler was denied permission to enter the case by Judge Hamilton Hobgood, there was an angry courtroom clash. The judge threatened Kunstler with contempt and time in jail. Kunstler said, "Go ahead." The judge jailed him for 2 hours.
I feel that a very horrible thing has been done. I hope that people in the state will react to this. This is not just Ms. Little's fight. It's a fight of every decent citizen who wants the fundamental guarantee of the Sixth Amendment to a right to counsel of choice. She is being deprived of that right, I think, intentionally and willfully, in order to put her into the gas chamber. The stakes are very high, and I think that what was done here was something that offends or should offend the decency of every thinking person in this state and in this country.
While Kunstler was in jail in North Carolina, an actual client of his, Dennis Banks, was facing arrest in Custer, South Dakota. Banks is due for sentencing tomorrow, and a bench warrant was issued today when he failed to check in with the Custer County Sheriff's Office. Banks was convicted on riot and assault charges stemming from the confrontation in the Custer County Courthouse back in 1973. But authorities said they would not actively search for Banks unless he fails to show up in court tomorrow. A still unidentified man was shot to death in North Minneapolis at around 3 o'clock this afternoon. Police arrested a man who turned himself in at the scene, but he has not yet been arraigned. His name wasn't released. The dead man was identified as 25 years old and white. He had apparently been shot with a 12-gauge shotgun in a second-floor apartment at 708 Lowry Avenue North. Police this evening are still trying to notify that man's relatives. St. Paul police were hot on the trail of a gang of car thieves today in a wet and muddy trail it was, and Susan Spencer was right there amongst them. Susan?
David, the trail ended on the Mississippi riverbanks. It all started about 2 weeks ago when police got an anonymous tip saying that a stolen car with a stolen safe in it was resting comfortably on the bottom of the river, somewhere between Water and Joy Streets. Divers who went after it came up with the car and with the safe and with wild tales of many more cars down there on the bottom of the river. So this morning, the police and the fire department scuba unit set out again, this time armed with sonar, which picked up signals from about a dozen vehicles. By this afternoon, they'd pulled out 4, most 1960s models, and the police think most stolen. The theory is that a gang used these cars in robberies, and then, when they were too hot to handle, cleverly put rocks on the accelerators and sent them careening down a hill to their final watery resting place. The police want the cars now as possible evidence in a current investigation. Getting the cars into the water proved considerably easier than getting them out again. The divers say it will take another 2 days of muddy river fishing to finish the job, unless, of course, there are even more cars down there than they think. Also, a gas main ruptured in suburban Maplewood earlier today, shaking up many people in that community, but luckily causing no injuries. An explosion accompanied the break, but there was no fire, and NSP crews are right now continuing to work to restore gas service to between 200 and 400 customers who were affected. According to NSP officials, a Metro Sewer Board construction team accidentally cut the line located near Highway 61 and County Road B, and gas started escaping at a furious rate. 7 other communities, including Arden Hills, Mounds View, Shoreview, Roseville, New Brighton, Vadnais Heights, and North Oaks, may also be affected. NSP warns that pilot lights may go out in those areas and cautions consumers to turn off their gas immediately if that happens. Call NSP immediately, too. They will come out and relight your pilot.
Come to the fair, you'll be so glad when you're there. And share at Minnesota's one and only great state fair. Show for everyone, 12 whole days of fun. Let yourself go at the fair.
12 whole days of fun starting Thursday, August 21st. Let yourself go.
You're smart to sweeten your summer drinks with crystal sugar. It costs so little.
So I can drink to that.
They came to Earth 40,000 years ago, and even now, they observe us. On December 24th, 2011, they will return. Experience the outer space connection from Sun International, rated G.
Starts Wednesday for 1 week only in the Twin Cities, in Oka, St. Cloud, St. Croix Falls, and Mankato. Wednesday through Saturday only in Wayzata, Stillwater, Chaska, River Falls, St. Peter, Waconia, Owatonna, New Ulm, Hutchinson, Hastings, Marshall, Rice Lake, Menominee, and Winona.
This is a good time to do something about the appearance of your car. Mako Auto Painting and Body Works will paint the original factory color for as low as $54.95. Mako will give you a free estimate on any body damage, then professionally repair and refinish your car using modern spray and oven equipment. Mako, where you get a quality job at a reasonable price. That's Mako Auto Painting and Body Works at 12236 Riverwood Drive, Burnsville, or check Yellow Pages in the Minneapolis Directory, page 101.
5 Japanese Red Army terrorists have been released from a Japanese prison and are on their way now to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, where the fate of some 50 hostages at the American embassy there depend upon their safe arrival. Some members of the terrorist Japanese Red Army have threatened to kill their hostages at the embassy unless their comrades reach Kuala Lumpur. The terrorists shot their way into the embassy early this morning, taking some 50 persons hostage, including 5 Americans. In the fight for the control of the building, 1 Malaysian guard was killed, another injured. The terrorists demanded freedom for their comrades and a plane to fly them to safety, and the Japanese yielded. All the while, the U.S. State Department has remained in the background while the Japanese have been negotiating with the terrorists. A U.S. spokesman noted that it is American policy not to yield to terrorist demands, but at the same time, he expressed pleasure that the hostages will be freed. Japanese Prime Minister Takeo Miki has been keeping in constant touch with the situation in Kuala Lumpur. He's in this country now for talks with President Ford tomorrow. The president should be back in the nation's capital any minute now, after wrapping up his 2 days in Yugoslavia with toasts and warm words of friendship for and from President Tito. Then it was off to the airport for the familiar departure, the 5th on this recent presidential tour of 5 European nations. The president described his meetings with Tito as cordial, open, and constructive. As the president and First Lady waved goodbye, they were saluted by the booming sound of 21 cannons. And as we wave goodbye to the chief executive, we say hello to our weatherman returned from the shores of Ely. How do you like your new home here?
I like the chair.
Comfortable?
Oh, yeah, the table and everything.
Orchestra's going to start pretty soon.
The dancing girls will come in.
Right.
You know, it reminds me of one of nature's proverbs, that the more things change, the more they stay the same. Now, we've got all these changes tonight, but I'm just back from Ely. That always seems to stay the same.
No matter where we put this set, you'll always return
always
from Ely,
be just coming back from Ely.
I must say, you look very nice in there.
Oh, you look nice too in all those.
Thank you, and you look nice. All of you look nice. Now let's get on with it.
All right, we'll hurry on to the weather now. Well, the sky is clear at this moment, and our temperature is very pleasant reading in the Twin Cities area, and it is 74 degrees, by the way. The humidity at 50%. The wind is from the southeast at 3 miles an hour. The barometric pressure is at 30 inches even, and the pressure is rising. It was rather cloudy and foggy on the west coast today. All along the coastline, you'd run into fog and clouds wherever you turned. The sky cleared through the northwestern corner into the 5-state area. The hot spot continues to be the southwestern corner of the country. Gila Bend, Arizona, always famous for hot weather, went to 120 degrees today. The forecast is for clear and 103 at Tucson for tomorrow, and it should continue to be clear tomorrow, except for the coastal areas from Reno through the Spokane area to Billings, Kansas City, through the Denver area to Kansas City, and to Chicago. Our strongest cold front of a series of cold fronts have been crossing the country from the northwestern corner into the eastern third of the last few days. Runs from eastern Texas through the Ohio Valley up to the northeastern states. Most of the rain today fell along that line. It's because of the colder air moving into the very hot and humid conditions that have grabbed the east coast from the weekend. Corpus Christi into Galveston, there's been some local flooding through there. 3 inches of rain in central Louisiana during the day. Harbison, Delaware, there was a tornado there today, and locally heavy rains in Vermont. And the forecast is that rain will continue ahead of that cold front for tomorrow, from New Orleans through Atlanta, through Louisville. This is Raleigh through New York City and to to Portland, Maine. In the forecast in the 5-state area for tomorrow, we're looking for a few widely scattered showers in South Dakota. Those would be mostly in the afternoon. The forecast for the area, though sunny and mild, widely scattered showers in South Dakota. Iowa high should be 88 for tomorrow, and Wisconsin and Minnesota, temperatures tomorrow should be in the 70s, running 70 to 78 degrees. Tonight, over the 2-state area, the sky is partly cloudy here in the northwestern corner of the state. There's been some rain through northern Iowa part of the day, mostly east and west of Mason City, and during the past 2 hours we've had some light rain extreme southeastern Minnesota into southwestern Wisconsin. Temperatures now 62 at Duluth through 75 at Alexandria, 73 now at Wausau. In the forecast for our Twin City metropolitan area, the low tonight will be 60, clear and cool tonight, high tomorrow 78, winds from the east at 5 to 15 miles an hour, and we expect clear, cool nights and sunny days for most of the week now.
You're a magician. I kept my eye on you. How the hell did you get from that side to that side? How did you do that? I've been watching you all the time.
You could only do it through the magic of television.
I know you can. I was right here and you fooled me. One of the best deals around has finally fallen victim to inflation. That would be the Staten Island ferry ride. Since 1897, 78 years, the fare has been a nickel, 10 cents for the round trip. But New York City's money problems have changed all that. The round trip fare now is 25 cents, a move that is expected to bring in an additional $1.3 million annually. Which brings us to one of the new features on the scene tonight called Shoestring Living. Consumer reporter Larry Schmidt, who is with us tonight, and then reporter Kathy Kurtz in subsequent programs, will provide hints on how to stretch the budget. And tonight, Larry has advice for those who are still planning a vacation, right?
And I hasten to add, I just got back, too, from a couple of weeks in some of the western states in Canada, and I was, frankly, a little bit surprised to find that the price of gasoline here in the Twin Cities was about the lowest we found in that more than 3,000-mile trip.
What's the highest price you found? Where?
I think we paid about 65 to 67 cents a gallon for regular in parts of Wyoming and Montana, maybe 10 to 14 cents higher than right here in the Twin Cities. But just the same, the price of gasoline may have cut into the travel plans of some Minnesota families this year, and you may yet be able to afford a vacation this summer if you save money by staying at cut-rate motels. If you can get along without plunging into an Olympic-sized swimming pool or strolling through an expansive lobby, chances are you can save upwards of 25% on overnight accommodations. Many long-established hotels and motels and a growing number of newly constructed facilities now offer rates $5 or more, below prices prevailing at major chains and the more luxurious independents. Typically, the new breed of economy inns are located just a stone's throw from higher-cost competitors, providing a clear dollar and cents choice when you hit the freeway exit. Not that economy motels are Spartan. Indeed, some may have a pool and a restaurant, besides attractive rooms with phones, air conditioning, and color TV. But the emphasis is on providing a good night's rest. The rates are lower, usually because every inch of space is put to efficient use, or because an independent operator is fighting the power of the bigger chains. A new directory lists 56 budget motels and hotels in Minnesota alone, more than 600 nationwide. To obtain a copy, send $1 to Budget Motels, 568 North Snelling, St. Paul, and the zip code is 55104. Of course, if you want some of the frills like sauna baths and piano bars, there are many fine establishments to serve you, but if the money's tight, cut-rate motels can make the difference between vacationing on the road or just staying at home.
There is no way to live on a shoestring in Alaska. The astounding rate of inflation in the 49th state is only one side effect of the black gold rush. Quent Neufeld's report is coming up.
Still to come on the Monday scene tonight, Skip Loescher and Action News, Hal Scott with sports, and Susan Spencer with People You'll Like.
The smart money these days is following this thrifty cat to Lincoln Mercury's best-selling car, Monarch. Right now, you can get this Mercury Monarch with a 250 cubic inch 6, automatic transmission, power steering, AM radio, and steel-belted radios, all for about $3,866. Average price of a July 18th shopping survey of all Minneapolis-St. Paul area Lincoln Mercury dealers. Some prices were higher, some lower. Title and taxes extra. So follow this little cat and get your dealer's special Monarch price.
What makes Land O'Lakes cottage cheese so good? We start only with fresh grade A skim milk. Some don't, you know. Land O'Lakes cottage cheese. Texture that's uniform and firm enough to hold its shape. We add fresh cream that glistens and clings to the cheese to give it natural, bright color and a fresh, delicate flavor. That's what makes cottage cheese so good. Get a taste of the country from Land O'Lakes, America's #1 butter maker.
Help you make the most of what you've got. At the First Banks, come in and let us show you how.
7 years ago now, since a gigantic new oil reserve was discovered on the Arctic North Slope of Alaska, not a drop of that oil has yet found its way to Minnesota, or anywhere else for that matter. But the black gold rush has come to Alaska, and Minnesotans have gone up there by the score to get in on the action. Tonight, WCCO's Quentin Neufeld and photographer Gordon Bartouche begin a week-long Scene Tonight series on what oil, and now the construction of the Trans-Alaska Pipeline, are doing to our 49th state.
This is the stuff the Alaskan pipeline is made of. It's a pipeline that dominates the headlines, every private conversation in this state. And like it or not, the pipeline is dramatically changing Alaska. The endless horizon of the Arctic North Slope is already punctured by oil derricks. The domain of the Eskimo and migrating caribou is now the start of the Trans-Alaska Pipeline. When done, it'll funnel crude oil from America's biggest find at Prudhoe Bay, 800 miles across the state to the ice-free port of Valdez. The impact of the pipeline is often described as no more severe than a pencil line across a football field. And even critics, who delayed construction for 5 years, now seem less worried about immediate environmental damage than its social impact.
Oil has started the process of cultural degradation, of social tension and upheaval that is achieving a momentum which, if it isn't stopped, which if it isn't arrested to any significant degree, will make this probably the most tragic experiment in the history of America.
Alaska is almost 7 times the size of Minnesota, but with scarcely more population than St. Paul. That has been its traditional appeal. But with the fantastic pipeline salaries, more people arrive with every plane. Land is being cleared in amazingly remote areas and then subdivided. One sometimes gets the feeling that Alaska is under assault by the construction industry. But even it hasn't been able to keep up with the demand in cities like Fairbanks, where housing has gone out of sight. This home, we estimated in the $40,000 range by Twin City standards, was on the market here for $130 grand. An upstairs apartment in the same house was renting for $1,100 a month. Down the street, 2 little one-bedroom bungalows were selling together for $90,000. Fairbanks itself now has about 40,000 people, up 25% in the last year. Bumper-to-bumper traffic jams and narrow one-way streets. Campers are tucked between the city's peculiar mixture of log cabins and new split levels. And downtown, the castaways of the bonanza occupy the sidewalks. Prostitution is open and uncontrolled, crime high, alcoholism rampant. Every speculator and hustler who made the Klondike notorious seems to be back in Alaska. Yet, for everyone trying to cash in on the pipeline boom, there are several more who fail. Long lines form outside the union halls every morning, but only a handful get jobs. A Minnesotan that we heard of signed up here at the Teamsters last Christmas, but he still hasn't been out on the line, and there are now 3,000 more names on the list behind him. The state even ran ads in the lower 48 asking people not to come, but they still do. The governor of Alaska talks about controlled development, but it's hard to believe that things aren't, at least for the time being, out of control. The rush to oil seems to be putting a real squeeze on America's last great wilderness. With photographer Gordon Bartouche, Quentin Neufeld, WCCO Television News in Alaska.
Tomorrow night, Quint will take a look at the 800-mile-long Alaskan pipeline and some of the folks from here who are working on it. Senator Mondale says he hopes that Alaska oil can be routed to Minnesota and other states whose refineries depend on the dwindling supply of Canadian crude. And Mondale warned that a presidential veto of the extension of domestic oil price controls will further fuel inflation and even deepen the recession. Minnesota's Energy Director-designate John Milhone warns that the full effect of the energy crunch will become more apparent as the recession eases. Milhone told our Skip Loescher today that if Minnesotans don't really begin to conserve energy, economic and legislative action will have to be taken to force conservation. Concern over inflation pushed the Dow Jones Industrial Average lower again today. The 30 industrials closing at 818.05, down nearly 8.5 points. The New York Exchange estimates the average share of common stock was down 31 cents. On the American Exchange, stocks dropped an average of 6 cents. A couple of new developments on stories we reported earlier on the scene tonight. Susan Spencer has the tale. Susan?
David, there's late word from the airport where Northwest Airlines and the pilots have been meeting tonight. Barry Peterson, who reported at the start of our program that the talks has recessed, now says that it's believed that federal mediator W.J. Ussery will call the pilots back in about midnight. The talks, which so far have produced no breakdown in the 21-hour strike, could resume at that time. And just a few moments ago, President Ford arrived back in Washington from his European trip. He was greeted by a driving rainstorm and by a rather damp crowd of well-wishers. Hal Walker has that late report.
Both the President and Mrs. Ford looked rested after their whirlwind trip, but the weather and the lateness of the hour ruled out any plans for an arrival speech. The handshaking was brief, and the First family left immediately for the White House, where they will be for only a few days before Mr. Ford and Mrs. Ford leave for Vail, Colorado, and a brief vacation. Hal Walker, CBS News, Andrews Air Force Base.
The latest on the saga of the canning lids, and Action News ends the search for a Winona man when the scene tonight resumes.
My kids had a way of turning school clothes into play clothes. Powders just couldn't keep up with their greasy dirt. Then I tried that little blue jug, Dynamo. Just a quarter cup cleans a whole wash. And this bike grease. Now school clothes stay school clothes. Stain's gone, so my whole wash is cleaner than powders would get it.
Ho, 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 the little blue jug is Dynamo.
Recommended by women who used to use powders.
Hi, dears. Like to pinch pennies? Look for this special package of heavy Scott towels. You can save 3 cents.
Hey, let's play McDonald's French fry word game. Don't be shy. Give it a try. Think of the word.
Play the fry.
Go fry too.
I'm Mr. Fries. Go fry a kite.
I'm hungry. Now that's the most ridiculous thing I ever heard.
What do you do when you have a large appetite for French fries? Get the large order of McDonald's world-famous fries.
Fry-rific.
If you haven't yet ordered those precious canning lids from Goodwill Industries, you might just as well forget it. They're sold out, all 2,800,000 of them. In fact, Goodwill received nearly 4 times more orders than they have lids. But we'll hold on to everyone's checks in hopes that more lids may be obtained. Goodwill says the first shipment of lids arrived today, and more are due shortly. Action News has been getting canning lid letters for months now. Undoubtedly, we'll get them for months more. But tonight, a different kind of a problem. This one comes from halfway across the world. Skip?
David, as you know from sitting down there amidst the Action News staff, our staff is working fairly hard to try to solve people's problems for them, but there is a lady who has never even heard of Action News. For that matter, she's never heard of CCO television. Her name is Mary Dooley, and her problem is, well, she lives in England, and she's trying to locate an American serviceman that she hasn't seen or heard from since World War II. It's a pretty big order, especially when she only knew his name and the fact that his parents had owned a farm in Minnesota. The Postal Service had failed her, so she addressed her letter to the mayor of Minnesota. Well, what she lacked in knowledge of state government, she made up for in luck. Mayor Cohen of St. Paul got the letter, and he referred it to Action News.
It took us a month, but tonight we're proud to say that we found Johnny Kronebusch. Why'd we bother? When Mary Dooley wrote the mayor, we have intended to write for years. The death of my mother, who was fond of him, really made me make the effort. Our staff can be pretty sentimental. The man who left such warm memories with an English family 3 decades ago now lives and works in Winona. His name really isn't Johnny. Actually, it's Fritz, but in the war, his buddies wouldn't tolerate such a German-sounding name. Fritz married an English girl. They've raised 11 children, living in the same house since 1948. Our staff visited the Kronebusch family today with a sealed envelope from Mary Dooley. She was Mary Bolton 30 years ago, and that's when Johnny Kronebusch was a 24-year-old Midwestern farm boy. Their paths crossed just twice. They knew each other for a total of 4 weeks, but the Bolton family treated Johnny, or Fritz, just like a son. Mary Dooley wrote about her husband and daughter, expressed hopes that Johnny was as happy as she was. Kronebusch is a grandfather many times over now, but he hasn't forgotten the Boltons, and the letter pleased him.
You don't forget, no. We spent some wonderful weekends at their house, and you just don't forget it that easy.
What do you think it was about you that made them think so fondly of you over this long period of time?
I wouldn't have any idea. I just wouldn't.
Our staff worked hard to deliver Mary Dooley's letter. Countless phone calls and letters, long waits for computer checks, and messages to be returned. Ironically, all we had to do was mention the Dooley letter on the air, because as it turns out, the Kronebusches say they watch television 4 every night. And if we can help you with the problem, let us know about it in writing. Action News, WCCO Television, our zip code 55402.
There was a reference to World War II today at today's House Committee hearing on the CIA. The spy agency director, William Colby, said he does not approve of assassination plots, but he did say he would have approved an effort to assassinate Adolf Hitler in 1944. But the major focus of today's hearing was on the CIA budget. Colby opposed making it public. He said foreign powers could learn many secrets if they knew how much money the agency spends. Colby then became embroiled in a dispute with California's Ronald Dellums when he requested a closed-door session.
And it would seem to me for you, as one person, to make the determination that you do not trust 435 members, each of whom represent 464,000 people, each of whom won an open election in ostensibly a democratic society. I would say to you, sir, you don't have the right to play God.
Mr. Dellums, I am not playing God. I am only enforcing the laws that the Congress passed and the directives of our government to protect some of the necessary secrets of the intelligence business, to protect that very free society that both you and I want to protect.
Later, the committee did agree to meet behind closed doors. Early this morning and again tonight, there were clashes along the Israeli-Lebanese border. The Tel Aviv command reported Israeli troops attacked suspected guerrilla installations inside Lebanon, killed or wounded a number of terrorists. The raid came 24 hours after Israeli troops had clashed with a band of suspected guerrillas who'd tried to sneak over the northern border. Anti-communist demonstrators took to the streets in Portugal again last night and today, protesting the communist ties of the three-man ruling military junta. Unrest continues as the opposition to the communists continues. Today, it grew violent once again as 2 protesters in a northern city were shot and killed by government troops. Hal Scott returns with the sports when the Scene Tonight returns.
Ladies and gentlemen, we present the Minnesota Savers Club from Minnesota Federal, the most unique Savers Club in town. It's a club without club rooms. Instead, you get discount benefits on a great variety of items at selected business and entertainment establishments here and across the nation. All you need is $1,000 on deposit at Minnesota Federal and this membership card. It's for savers who'd like to save a little bit more. That's what I like about Minnesota Federal.
Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus comes to the air-conditioned Met Center tomorrow night. Good seats are still available. You can buy tickets at the Met Center or Dayton's. It's the greatest show on earth.
If you are inclined to huff and puff going up a short flight of stairs, try to imagine what your huff-puff quotient would be going up Pikes Peak, 14,110 feet from the base to the summit. It's considered by some to be the most grueling foot race in the world, with the thin air taking its toll of runners. But that didn't stop a record 350 people from trying their hand or their feet in the competition. The first to reach the top was Rich Trujillo, and he completed the 26.8-mile round trip in a record time of 3 hours, 31 minutes, and 5 seconds. 39-year-old Joss Naylor, an English sheep farmer, one of the best-known amateur runners in Europe, made it to the top looking very tired. Joss's division only had to go up the mountain, but after a short break and a glass of water, the Englishman went down, too. Joss's overall time, 4 hours, 7 minutes, 22 seconds, good enough to put him in 6th place. We complain about running up 3 flights of stairs.
I thought you were going to say, speaking of 6th place, the twins...
Oh, how clever of me had I thought of that, but you were. What's happening to them now?
Well, we're 5-5 now in the lower 10th. John Mayberry did the damage. They took out big Jim Hughes, and they put in Mark Wiley, and Mayberry promptly unloaded one on him.
Jim Hughes had trouble with Mayberry when they were here, too.
That's right. The same thing happened then.
That's right.
Fitzmaurice was relieved by the old Lindy McDaniel.
Right.
Same thing happened tonight. Lindy McDaniel's in there now, and now Mark Wiley, and we're 5-5 in the lower 10th. Carew is 1 for 3.
Terrific.
He's hitting about 372, 373 now, Dave. Well, Gopher football coach Hal Scott is so optimistic, he said this today. They're really going to be something this season. Best team here in 15 years. Save your money for Pasadena, California. The Vikings cut 7 players today, all of them free agents or low draft picks, which brings the squad down to 62. When asked about the Vikings' #1 problem this season, Coach Bud Grant said, to be as good as last year, which was a very satisfying season for us, even though we did not win in the Super Bowl. The idea, he said, is to be competitive, and I think we were. The Vikings' first preseason game is a week from Saturday against Joe Namath and his New York Jets in Phoenix, Arizona. The Superior State Touring Company, meanwhile, presented their version of the musical Damn Yankees, entitled Damn Vikings, to the team over the weekend. And Mark Rosen has that report.
After a week of head-knocking and getting yelled at by coaches, the Vikings were more than ready for a little entertainment at their Radio City Music Hall in Mankato.
They'll have to put a new wing on the football museum in Canton, Ohio.
The play is centered around Joe Hardy, a white middle-aged fan whose dream is to be a pro quarterback. Hardy is approached by the devil and given that chance in return for his life at the end of the season. Hardy accepts and dramatically changes into a 22-year-old superstar. The young woman who played the part of the seductive Lola was easily the most popular member among the Vikings of the 28-actor troupe. As Bud Grant said before the play, the biggest problem would be keeping the players off the stage.
And I wish that I were 2 people, but I'm not. I'm only one, and I'm married. But Lola, you're tougher than Carl Eller.
The 2.5-hour production replaced a normal team meeting that takes place every night, and everyone agreed that it was a lot better than looking at X's and O's on a blackboard. With photographer Larry Kohoff, this is Mark Rosen, WCCO Television Sports in Mankato.
The major figure in the college basketball scandal of 15 years ago, 43-year-old Jack Molinas, has been shot to death in a gangland-style killing in Los Angeles. Molinas, found guilty of bribery involving 47 players from 27 colleges and of betting on his own NBA Fort Wayne Pistons, was sentenced to 10 to 15 years at the time and barred from the NBA for life. University of Minnesota Athletic Director Paul Giel, who you heard earlier on the scene tonight, was an in-person guest on the scene at 6. And I asked him if Bill Musselman was fired as head coach of the basketball team.
Bill Musselman was not fired.
Was it ever brought up, Paul?
No.
Nothing of that sort at all ever?
Nothing was ever
came up?
No. The only thing I ever talked to Bill Musselman was about, where I said, I think you have some shortcomings, is your player-coach relationships at times. But everybody goes through that, and we have some talks. That's part of my job as an athletic director, if I feel sometimes some of the young men are disenchanted. But I realize, too, there's 2 sides to a story. And in this day and age of recruiting, where people sometimes, the minute they don't start, get a little bit angry and want to move on. So I always try to hear 2 sides to the story.
Did you know that he was negotiating with San Diego?
Had no knowledge whatsoever.
It looks like ex-Yankee manager Bill Verdon is heading for the Texas Rangers, but not as manager, but as director of player personnel. Tomorrow night, Dave Goltz against Al Fitzmaurice of the Royals. We had told you the score is 5-5 in the lower 10th. The Yankees and Rudy May beat the Brewers 2-1 in Milwaukee. Cleveland over Detroit 6-4. Baltimore and Boston are 6-6 playing in the 7th inning. Texas over Oakland 12-0. And in the National League, St. Louis jolted the Pirates 5-4 to cut Pittsburgh's lead over Philadelphia to 4 games. In Philadelphia, the Cubs are leading the Phillies 3-2 in the 7th inning in a game delayed by rain, and Montreal beat the Mets 4-3. The rest of the games are just getting underway. John Hendricks of Keller with a 3-under-68 has a 1-stroke lead entering tomorrow's final round of the Minnesota Junior Boys Golf Tournament at Minnetonka. And Kelly Varty of Elk River has a 3-stroke lead in the Junior Girls Division. Little League Baseball Playoffs, District 1 semifinals, Robbinsdale 3-2 over East Richfield, and Golden Valley defeated Roseville 12-5. The Chicago Tribune, in the wake of that story that the White Sox may move to Seattle, Washington, and Oakland moving to Chicago, conducted a poll of the fans of the White Sox, which showed they prefer the White Sox, even though they are third to the first-place Oakland A's.
Because they're more human, they drop the ball occasionally.
I guess that would be a major reason.
Thank you, Hal. Ever wanted to go to the top of the IDS building on the outside? Susan Spencer found some people who do it every day. Her story as the scene tonight continues, so stay with us.
Here's a great way to buy kids' clothes. The Garanimal system. Just match Garanimal tags, and the shirts and pants will go together. Match zebras or monkeys. Mix and match permanent press tops and bottoms. Garanimals are inexpensive and so durable, most kids outgrow them before they outwear them. Garanimals. Just match the tags for a perfect match.
Garanimals, available at Donaldsons.
Here's Snyder's Super High of the Week. Snyder.
I'm a burglar and there's no one at home. Watch closely. This home is protected from crime by the amazing RPS system. The telephone is automatically dialing for help. If you were a burglar, what would you do?
Sophisticated wireless protection for the home, the RPS system, from Rollins Protective Services, another service of Rollins Incorporated.
Arthur Courts is holding their after-inventory sale and offering the biggest savings of the year on quality men's fashions, all from regular stock. For example, suits once priced up to $185 are now only $69.90. Sports coats regularly priced up to $125 are now reduced to $49.90. Slacks and those smart-looking leisure suits are now half price. Furnishings, too, are half price. So look your best and save money, too, at the big after-inventory sale at Arthur Courts, North Star Center.
The IDS building has come to symbolize the Minneapolis skyline, towering some 50 stories above the city. In that building are 48,000 windows, and they're the concern some folks our Susan Spencer ran into recently. Susan?
David, washing every one of those 48,000 windows is a continuous summer-long project, the cost of which IDS Properties won't divulge. The washers' wages are about $5 an hour. The requirements for their job: know how to handle a squeegee and have a real love for high places. On sunny mornings, you'll find Darrell Dutcher and Pete Lieb hanging 775 feet above the Nicollet Mall. Like the rest of us, they're just going to work. But theirs is on an elaborate $400,000 15-ton scaffolding machine they trustingly call Big Mama. Big Mama has 4 thick cables capable of holding 75,000 pounds. It glides down the IDS Center building's sheer sides on rails to prevent swaying. And as you timidly peer down, Pete and Darrell will hand you that old line that this thing is safer than an elevator. There have been no bad accidents. Though Big Mama did plunge several floors one day without explanation, the washers claim they never give sudden death a thought.
While you're working, you don't think about being so high. You don't really realize you're up, you're just working. The glass is right in front of you all the time, so you just keep on working. It's just like any other job, like going to a factory every day and punching the same clock and same thing. It gets boring.
The washers say that boredom, not danger, is the biggest drawback of their job. They spend almost as much time stuck doing nothing as they do washing, waiting for another Big Mama breakdown up top to be fixed. During that time, they can't even amuse themselves by watching the office workers. The windows are mirrors from the outside. But the unseen can see them, and occasionally they catch the cage's emergency phone number.
Who? It's an anonymous caller.
Okay. We go by there every day. We should know you by now. Okay. Thanks for the call. Okay, bye.
The washers say that other than the inside folks, few people ever asked them about their jobs. They did last year, though, especially after a report that some washers had seen fit to relieve themselves over the side of the building, figuring that 50 floors below, nobody would know. That company was fired, fast, and Darrell promises now that everyone takes that sometimes long 20-minute ride to the top to the rooftop facility.
It doesn't take that long. Yeah. You know, it's better than doing it right here on the rig.
I'm sure there are a lot of people down there that would agree with you.
I'm sure. I'm sure people think about it when the water comes down yet.
Have you ever thought about it when the water's come down?
I'm glad you answered the question. I wasn't going to know how to phrase it.
No.
How did you feel going up? Or coming down?
I had reached the point where it had taken so long to arrange that I couldn't possibly back out of it. And once you actually put your foot onto that little rig in the cage, you've done it, and you're so committed that there's not even any point in being afraid.
Going up, did you look down?
Oh, yes.
Going down,
many
did you
times.
look up?
No, you don't have any inclination to look up. You just look down.
At least you didn't ride
I wouldn't do it again, I don't think.
on the wings of an airplane. That's your next assignment.
No, that's Mr. Loescher.
Because it's a part of the woman's year assignment. Right. America has many war heroes, and some, like Audie Murphy, the most decorated soldier of World War II, have become almost legendary, which is not true in Canada, where the man who won more medals than anyone else in World War II has actually faded from the scene. But friends of Tommy Prince were determined that he should not be forgotten, so they held a big party in his honor at the Broken Head Indian Reservation near Winnipeg. Prince's old regiment turned out for a full-dress concert and salute to one of Canada's most colorful heroes. In 5 years, Tommy Prince won 9 medals of honor, and then after re-enlisting to go to Korea, he won 2 more. The guest of honor said, "I didn't make Tommy Prince alone. My friends made him for me," unquote. We'll get another update on the Northwest pilot situation, the weather wrap-up from Bud, in just a moment.
Gillette introduces Track 2 Shave Cream. New, different than ordinary shave creams, because Track 2 is Gillette's before and after shave cream. Before you shave, it softens whiskers for the smoothest shave possible. After you shave, special aftershave conditioners keep your skin soft and smooth. Conditioners that fight aftershave dryness. New Track 2 Shave Cream with aftershave conditioners.
The car was designed by the man who brought you the Ferrari and the $70,000 Rolls Royce. The price was designed by the people who bring you Fiat.
I've got roaches on my floors, flies on my walls, and pests in my garden. Do I have to buy 3 bug killers?
No. Buy one that kills almost every bug. Introducing amazing Black Flag Triple Action. It's 3 sprays in one. One spray so effective it kills almost every bug. With Triple Action, you spray away harmful garden pests, flies and mosquitoes, germ-carrying roaches. Triple killing power. Black Flag Triple Action. One spray so effective
it kills almost every bug.
Stay tuned as deadly scorpions unleash a devastating attack on human life. The Black Scorpion. Next on the CBS Late Show here on Channel 4.
Well, there appears to be little change in the Northwest Airlines pilots union negotiations since Susan reported to you last. Barry Peterson, who reported at the outset of the talks at the scene, said the talks had recessed. And now it's believed the federal mediator, W.J. Ussery, will call the pilots again about midnight, nearly an hour from now. The talks, which so far have produced no breakthrough in the 21-hour strike, could resume at that time. Here's unhappily, a late item from the sports department. In extra innings, Kansas City defeated the Minnesota Twins 6-5. And guess what? It appears that there may be still another Democratic presidential hat in the ring by tomorrow. Indiana Senator Birch Bayh, long considered a contender, says he will file papers tomorrow to allow a presidential committee to be set up on his behalf. Henry Jackson, Senator Jackson of Washington, another candidate, says the Ford administration's plan for detente could mean higher prices for consumers, suggesting that the government hold off on any more grain sales to the Russians. A little single-engine plane crashed on takeoff at Flying Cloud Airport this morning, but the student pilot, who was soloing, escaped serious injury, even though the craft did flip over. 31-year-old Sandra Snyder of Minnetonka suffered minor cuts on the forehead. She was a bit shaken, but nothing more. however, she says she simply lost control as the plane gained speed. Little program note on tomorrow's night scene, Bill Stewart with the first report on Case Unsolved. Bill zeroes in on the St. Paul search for the man who may have set a house afire, killing 2 young girls, including the police tape recording of a voice that may be that of the arsonist. So that's tomorrow night on Case Unsolved, plus part 2 of Quentin Neufeld's Alaska Pipeline Report, and perhaps a few letters addressed to Dear Dave. Let's get the weather wrap up before we leave.
The temperature range today was an early morning 67. The high this afternoon was 85. Now it'll be cooler tonight and tomorrow. Low tonight of 60. And with a sunny sky for tomorrow forecast, the high 78.
Very good. That's it, folks. That's the scene tonight, Monday, August 4th. Thanks for being with us.